Hi everyone and welcome to my channel Karoline's Knits. My name is Karoline and I live in Scotland with my husband Ben and our dog Freyla, who has just fetched me this because I started talking and she's like, must mean it's playtime. I usually do not film in this spot in my house. We're in my sort of living room, kitchen, everything area, so it's a much bigger room, so there might be slightly more echo, and also Fela, my dog, the little menace, come on, might be a little bit more unsettled when I speak down here. Fela, could you lie down, please? Lie down, lie down. Yes, yes, you're very sweet. So if you have missed Fela interruptions, here she is, ready to be an absolute menace. She is tired, she just doesn't know it. On Saturday, we go to Hoopers, which is a dog sport not too dissimilar from agility, besides the fact that dogs are allowed to do it much earlier because it's not high impact. And so just like something like agility, it requires lots and lots of brain work. And so often when we come home on Saturdays, if we've been to Hoopers, she is tired. So I'm gonna stop waffling on today. First of all, I want to say thank you for all your lovely comments about the wedding video. I am hoping to film some more videos this weekend beside purely this podcast episode, and they will be up. I asked for questions about the wedding and weddings in general on Instagram, so I've saved those and I might cover that in like a sit and knit with me. I have some swatches I need to knit this weekend, so that might be the perfect motivation to get them done. Second of all, I'm going to say I am going to try something new today. I think I've come to realise that I find that the sort of like stringent this is what you show at what time kind of structure of podcast doesn't work too well for me. Or at least I think it might not, so I'm going to try something else. I saw a Danish podcaster who basically just said, I am going to show you whatever I feel like and in whatever order I like. So I'm going to try that today. If that turns out to be completely chaotic, I may not do it again. But I sometimes think I get too bogged down with, oh, well, I have to show every single whip, even if they've had this much added since you've last seen it. And I just think it takes the flow away a little bit. I am enough of a monogamous knitter that I just often one project will have gotten a lot of love and some won't, and so I'd rather sort of speak about that. I should probably let the dog out, and this is what today's going to be filled with, in and out, in and out. So I let the dog out, and here's to hoping that she will stay out for a little while. Ben's away on a stag do this weekend, so we are home alone, but that also means that I couldn't just make him watch her while I film. As much as I love Fela, there's something about me chatting. Sometimes when I speak on the phone to my mum, she gets all riled up. Right, let's get started. So I am going to start with something quite classic in the order, which is what am I wearing today? So this is one of my finished objects. This has been underway, I think when I checked on Vavery, I have had this underway since April, which I guess comes under quite a long time. So this is the Carlo Hen sweater by Knitting for Olive. The pattern is by Knitting for Olive. I'm knitted in one strand of Vilcolana Anina, which is 100% superwash merino wool. And then a second strand of Fibre Spates Cumulus, which is a baby cereal alpaca silk blend. So slightly thicker than a normal, than a classic silk mohair, but sort of same concept, that it is probably something you'd mainly use as a second strand. I did do a few modifications, so I realised when I started knitting it, I'd probably picked a size up than I had kind of planned to. So I'm going to pop in the cutaway just now so you can see it. So I realised I think I knit the biggest size, so most of Knitting for Olive's newer patterns are quite size inclusive. I think they're always at least 4XL, maybe 5XL. However, this is an older pattern and this only goes up to 2XL. And so I picked the biggest pattern, and then as I was knitting it, I just realised I didn't want it that big. I wanted a roll neck, but I did want it to have a slightly more fitted feel. It does have a saddle shoulder construction, as you can tell, and it does give that, as you can see right here, it does that. It you can't really avoid that crease. I think it's not as bad if I'm standing and I'm fussing with it and all of this, but when I sit down, it will have that little crease here, which I don't mind too much. And then it has yeah, the sort of fitted shoulder, and then it has the long ribbing on both the body and the sleeves. So just not particularly convoluted construction, and so the easy thing is you can stop the increase. I can't remember the increase rates, but essentially I just stopped the increases 1 or 2 rounds before I should have for my size, and then I just added some decreases down the body. And a big problem that I have with a lot of especially knitwear for some reason, not as much commercial clothes, because I guess they can be more naturally fitted, but I find a lot of knitwear, if I knit for my bust size, I don't actually know what my bust size is just now. The lowest I've ever measured it, I think, was about 105, and the highest I've ever measured it is about 115, and simply based on how I feel weight wise at the moment, I reckon I'm probably somewhere around 110 centimeters bust. But what I find is that often if I knit so that it has the positive ease on my bust, I end up with, you know, 20 to 30, 40 centimeters around my mid-waist, depending on the sizing. And for like an overall oversized pattern, that's fine, but a lot of the patterns I knit aren't that oversized, and it just doesn't look right, I don't think. Especially not for something like this that's meant to be fitted. So yeah, I basically just did decreases after I'd split the upper, you know, for the upper, yeah, split the sleeves from the upper body. You don't do any, you don't cast on any stitches on the arm, which I also think, for me personally, has really helped the fit, because you didn't suddenly get, you know, loads of extra space underneath. So yeah, just decreased, and then I did not increase again, because another problem I find is that despite my hip measurement actually usually following my bust measurement, it just doesn't look like it when I knit clothes, and often I think I want as close to a negative ease as possible, just around my mid-waist. The dog is now starting to look for stones. You know what, I'm going to leave her to it, and if she's too much of a menace, I'll call her in. So yeah, I finished this. What else is there to say? It's obviously very, very soft. It's a lovely sort of yarn combo. The thing about the cereal packet is that no matter what, oh my god, that is a massive stone feeler. That's going to probably give her a sumis, because she's going to be, basically, because we live in a new build, Fela has a tendency to like dig up half the garden, and then when she finds some kind of like stone or anything of that description, often it's like, you know, like leftover concrete looking things from construction, and she finds them all. They clearly, when they put down the grass, just planted on top of whatever was there. Anyway, yes, the cereal packet is really lovely and soft, but it does give a slightly more brushed look, in my opinion, than like true mohair does, and it also feels more like a brushed feel. I don't mind too much. I guess it depends what kind of fluff you want, but the fluff on something like this is denser and shorter, I would say. So yes, it is incredibly soft and next to skin. I am tempted to get rid of the long neckline. I just think it ends up sitting so that I feel like I get double chin, and I find that a bit irritating. Now, I wore this to work recently, and what I did was I took it and then I flipped it like so. I might wear it this way for the rest, because I can feel like I keep faffing with the neckline. So I have done the Italian like cast on, tubular cast on, so that it's like has plenty of stretch, but it just, I think because I sized down a needle size, because I always knit Lisa on bigger projects, and so because I'd sized down the main body needle size, I also sized down the ribbing, and all the ribbing on this is quite tight. Like, this is after a full day of wear, and I don't know if you can tell, but this still hasn't like stretched on like in the ribbing at all. I thought it would, because Anina's superwash, and so I was also really conscious that I didn't want to knit a Nina up at a loose gauge because I was nervous it would grow plenty as it was. And the thing about some of those yarns like a Nina that's like super wash treated is I think it's hard to fully predict what the weight of a garment will do to the yarn. So anyway, I knitted it much tighter, but I also think it means the neckline feels a bit tighter. And I just feel like it sits all the way up at my neck. So when I wore it earlier, like when I wore it to work, I just kind of folded it in on itself. I did fold it like this maybe. I basically managed to fold it so that it kind of just looked like a high collar and not like you know, a roll neck, because it just irritates me a little bit. I spoke to some of my knitting friends and I think we both agreed that if I just put in a needle, like, you know, like if I pick up the stitches for a round, I could essentially cut down to that point and essentially just knitted and bind off at the same time. I have plenty of yarn to do that, so I might. It's a shame because I love the idea of a roll neck, and I have I guess I have technically two worth of sort of turtleneck, roll neck sweaters, and I've actually worn them quite a lot, but I think this one might just be a little bit too tight. So has she picked up more stones yet? She's just continuing to pick up stones. I've now remembered why I stopped filming down here. I find her so distracting when she's outside. I think I'm still in that kind of like puppy phase of always looking out for where she is. Now, I do have some other, a small finished object that I'm going to talk about later, because what I actually really want to talk about is Perth Yarn Festival. So the lovely Rebecca from the Career Bear was quite sweet and constantly asking me if I wanted to go to this yarn festival, or I might not have gone. Right, she's ready to come in. Let's get her in before she picks up more stones. You can come up here and lie down if you want. And so lovely Rebecca from the Career Bear had asked me if I wanted to go together. And I spoke about that last time, and I decided to go because she'd asked. The Perth Yarn Festival was my very first festival. I'm told it was at the smaller end of the scale. I didn't take any footage because as much as I had planned to when I was there, I just decided to sort of enjoy it and not like be out with my phone the whole time. So I do apologise that I didn't have any good clips, but there was loads of quite interesting stalls. I sort of knew I wasn't looking for superwash merino like hand-dyed skeins, that if I was to buy something, I wanted to buy something like sort of rustic or Scottish or something of that kind of nature. So I didn't buy that much, but it was lovely to go. And if any of you saw me there and came up and said hi, it was lovely to meet you. I have never tried people walking up to me like that before, and so I do apologise if I seemed really confused or not really sure or awkward or not sure what to do with myself, because I didn't. Yeah, it's quite a surreal experience that people know who you are. If you ever do spot me, then please do come up and say hi. I am usually always happy to have a chat. Just be warned that I might be slightly awkward. And I didn't have you to talk about, did I? Usually if you're there, I just tell people about you, don't I? Yeah? Talk about you all day, don't I, Fela? Oh no, I should job live. So, could you lie down, please? Lie down. You can lie down here. So, at the Yarn Festival, as I said, I kind of knew that I didn't want like loads of things, simply because I didn't need like loads of yarn. So I kind of went with a budget of less than £100 was like my main aim to spend, and I could probably have spent a lot more if I had needed yarn. So yeah, there was lots of beautiful stalls, and people were really sweet and chatty, and I really enjoyed my time. So I'm definitely going to more yarn festivals, and I'm just gonna show you what I bought. So one stall that I got chatting to sold essentially, they're called Annfield Angora, just put out. So they're called Annfield Farm, made in Scotland. Fela's like, oh mummy, I can help you. So that's what their logo looks like. I will link them down below. Now she said that they haven't yet put these all of like the qualities up, so you might find that if you're on the website they won't have all of them, but I would be very surprised if they wouldn't reply if you message to ask if you wanted to buy any of these. They keep their own Angora goats, so that's where mohair comes from, really confusingly. They don't come from mohair goats, they come from Angora goats. So they also buy wool. I think they had a blend that had some Texel in it, which she said was like the big Dutch sheeps, which are like Mahusive commercial sheep. And they had some Dorset, and these mixes also have Shetland in them. And she basically, I got speaking to the couple that owns Annfield, and we spoke a lot about sort of like the rise of rustic yarn, what people like to knit in, and the sort of change in what people are looking for, the good qualities of natural yarn, all of this. So yeah, I basically stood chatting to them for like 20 minutes while Rebecca was away for the talk by Amy Palko, which sounds like it went really well. And the main reason I didn't go is that still at this age I am terrible at sitting still for that amount of time, and we just hit that like afternoon slump, and I was like, I'm not going to go to talk where I could potentially fall asleep. So after speaking to them towards the tail end, I was like, I didn't, you know, each skein of 100 grams is about £20-ish plus minus, and I kind of was like, I don't really need a sweater quantity. So I asked the lady, I was like, do you think like me this might actually be quite good for socks? And she said, I absolutely think so. So I bought this skein first. This is their old blend, so this is 50% mohair and 50% Shetland. All wool is from Scotland, non-superwash treated. This is dyed in the colour Passion, and it's a DK weight yarn. And it's a DK weight yarn, and so I bought this first, and then when I left I was like, should I have bought their old blend or should I have bought their new blend? So I went back and I got their new blend, and you can see I've already worked with that. So I bought their new blend, which is 70% mohair and 30% Shetland, and I was so excited by it that, as you can tell, I came home and I made sure to wind up the skeins more or less immediately, simply because I just thought it's better to start knitting it while you're still excited about the yarn, so that it doesn't become another one of those things that I put away and I never get around to it. So it is a week ago that went today, and I've finished the first sock, and I've started working on the second sock as well. So the new blend, as I said, is 70% mohair and 30% Shetland, and I think it's noticeably softer and fluffier, and overall just felt nicer than this. Knitting this up has been an absolute joy. While I knit it up, I was like, this is like nice enough to be proper sweaty yarn. I can tuck it in here. Immediate thoughts are, it is obviously a woolly yarn. It does have both mohair and Shetland in it, both of which are often a bit, you know, they are rustic-ish yarns. However, this is definitely next to Skin Soft if, like me, you've become sort of medium tolerant to yarn. It's definitely softer than I thought it would be, and I'm really excited to see how these wears. I had someone message me to say, are you sure you want to knit yarn up that doesn't have nylon in it? But from my very basic research into sort of like non-superwash sock yarns, mohair is considered one of the sort of bases that are quite hard wearing in socks. So I'm quite excited to see how these wears up. They're obviously DK weight socks, and they are called the Morrison socks, and I cannot remember the designer's name, so I'll link it down below. But they are essentially quite a basic sock where you have some cables and a knit purl sort of repeat on the front and back. Is it this one you're looking for, Phila? So yes, I knit these up in Phila, enough now, enough, baby, relax, it's nap time. Yes, I knit these socks up in less than a week, and I hate when people say this because I don't often think it's true. When people are like, oh yes, I memorize this repeat in like no time at all, but truly I did memorize this repeat quite quickly. But I really truly did, and they really flying off my needles, which I feel like is one of those other things people hate hearing people say. So I don't know what type of DK weight socks these are going to become. If you do have any recommendations, I'm always happy to hear about patterns. I'm going to see how I find the fit of these. So far, of the 3 different pairs of socks I've made myself, I feel like I might be one of the only people who don't actually prefer the heel flap so far. My favourite one is actually a short way heel. I might have just quite small heels, and that's why it fits me better, but I'm going to give these a go. I'm hoping with DK weight that they'll be a little bit more hard wearing and a bit thicker for winter time. But yeah, I will probably show you to them next time on a lovely sock blocker because they're still unwashed. So I don't know what these are going to be. And then the first thing I bought that I should probably show, if I can untangle all of this. So I also bought new cables for my Chiaogu needles, which are my absolute favourite. Obviously I did not knit socks. Well, I don't know why I say obviously. If you haven't been here, well, you might not know. But I didn't start knitting socks or small circumferences in general until I learned Magic Loop. And doing Magic Loop on Chiaogus, I've always found that quite easy. The cable is really good for Magic Loop, I think. But I needed some more small ones. So I do find sometimes with Magic Loop, and to be honest with a lot of my knitting in general, I seem to knit in a way that makes even Chiaogu cables untwist themselves a little bit, especially the smaller sizes for the size small cables. So sort of 3.5 millimeters and under, and I have a tendency that they start to undo themselves. And so I saw that there's a shop in a nearby town to me called Kirkentollich, called Celia MacWheely, and she does some really bright and beautiful hand-dyed yarn, and I guess it's like fleeces, like unspun things that you can then spin. So I saw she was there, and she is the one I bought most of my Chiaogu cables from, and she sells the new Chiaogu cables, which are the spin ones, so the needle can like spin without untwisting itself, but in contrast to the ones that comes with their bamboo cables, which can also spin. Bamboo tips, sorry, not cables. These ones do have a plastic wire in them. I think it's a thinner wire. In general, it's a more bendable wire than the red wire, but not in a bad way, and I've actually found them really easy to knit with. When I very, very first began, I did think the join is a bit thicker on these, but now I'm flying through them. So she only had one cable in the size I was looking for, so I bought it in a 75 centimeters, I think, which should be about 90 centimeter cable with my needle tips. But I am converted. I will definitely be buying more of these cables when I get the chance, because they're so good. So I bought one set of cables like this, and then I bought another shorter pair, basically. What are these, 55? Yeah, they are 75 cables. I love the print on these. Chiaogu, worth every penny. I never really knit on any other cables now after getting these. Now the final thing I bought, I feel like I need to give you the full story. So there was a store called Midwinter Yarns, and they sold some really lovely kind of rustic yarns, and I think actually they are usually based in Linlithgow, but I don't think they have a shop. Linlithgow is about 20 minutes away, and we actually used to live there, so that's kind of funny. However, in the store they did have some like lovely Scottish rustic type yarns. A Swedish yarn, one that Rebecca's bought a while ago that I was really tempted by, but I basically came to the conclusion that I did not need a sweater quantity of any yarn. In Rebecca's latest podcast, she showed the 4-ply Perth Kinross that lamb's wool that feels like cashmere, and all I can say, it's true, it feels exactly like cashmere. But again, I was like, I don't really need this for like a full project. So yeah, I looked at the stall. It was like the stall I kept circling back to. And I had noticed from a distance that they had tartan project bags. So one of the things, basically I went knowing that sock yarn was on the list, so I already bought that. And I also knew that I was looking for Tiago cables, so I bought those too. And then the final sort of thing I was like, that I could in some ways justify as needing was maybe a project bag or two. Now there was quite a few, but I feel like I was being quite picky, and project bags aren't cheap. So I was also maybe less keen to buy it than I would usually be, because I was like, 40 quid is a lot for a project bag, and probably isn't if you're going to use it every day, but you know what it's like. I basically just didn't find one I loved. I'd spotted that the Midwinter store had these tartan bags, but basically again put on my list that when I circle back next time I was going to look at them. And then we got stopped by someone and she's called Cassie, and Cassie had actually messaged me to say she was in the UK from the States for work, and that she was going to be at the festival, and we stopped to say hi. And so Rebecca and I were talking to her, and I realised that one of the things you do at yarn festivals is that you ask, well, you know, what are you looking for today, and have you bought anything? And as she was sort of going through the haul, she pulled out loads of beautiful yarn, but she also pulled out a project bag. And she pulled out one of those tartan project bags. So, you know, she was holding it up, showing it, and suddenly I looked at it and I was like, something about this feels familiar. And this right here, ladies and gents, is the exact tartan that my partner wore for our wedding. So this is the ancient Mitchell tartan, and I spotted it and I was like, I'm gonna have to own this, aren't I? Like, how could I pass up a project bag literally with the same kilt fabric that my partner wore for our just recent wedding? Especially because the ancient Mitchell tartan, so when it comes to tartans, there's a lot of fashion to what kind of tartans are in. This is things I didn't realise until I moved here. So that means that, you know, some people will pick their like family tartan, the region tartan. You get tartans for football teams, you get tartan for all sorts of different things. Sometimes, so for example, for our wedding, the groomsmen wore more muted tartans. That's not uncommon. Some people will pick tartans purely because they prefer the way that particular tartan looks. So you're not in the same way sort of tied down to having like a family tartan and that's the only tartan you wear. Within each tartan, you also often get sort of more, you can get the ancient ones, they tend to be more muted, not as bright, and then you get sort of more modern ones that tend to be a lot brighter. And my understanding is that that's depending on how the sort of dyeing process, so that, you know, the ancient ones are supposed to be more realistic of what tartans used to be like before we got modern dyes and could achieve much more bright colours. So the Mitchell tartan isn't one that ranks very highly on the like popular just now tartans. At the moment, tartans that are really popular are very muted. They're very sort of greys, sort of grey tones. And so it was an even bigger surprise because when Ben's kilt was being made for the wedding, they actually had to weave new wool for his kilt because they didn't have any ancient Mitchell in stock. So it's just to say that the ancient Mitchell tartan isn't a tartan that you see everywhere. It's maybe not even, you know, it's not like a traditional tartan. Like I feel like something, you know, some of, not really the purple ones, but that those are maybe slightly more traditional. So as soon as I saw it, I went back to the stall and she was like, you have to hurry because there's only one left. And we got there and it was still there. So I pulled it down. I was so excited. I told the lady, I showed photos of Ben in his kilt. I will pop in some, and we got some more pictures back and they're just stunning. And yeah, I just couldn't believe it. So this is a really lovely project bag actually. I would have bought it even if it wasn't, but it is quite nice. So it looks like this. Now I prefer project bags that don't have zippers because I find yarn can get stuck in them. And if I am taking my project bag anywhere, chances are that I will be knitting from the bag. Just going to show you, this is the toy she's brought me. This is a poppy blanket that she has now decided all of her poppy blankets are actually to be destroyed. So I'm going to give her that back put a little tie on it. There you go. I'm actually really happy that it doesn't have a zipper. Now, I don't think they have any more tartan ones. So the lady at the shop told me that basically the lady who makes the bags got given like a big bag of like tartan cut-offs, and that's where these bags are made of. So it's actually something that I think is really beautiful. It's like when you take things that otherwise would just go to waste and make them into something. So these are all offcuts, but they also have a different style. I think they were slightly more waxy, but I think the build of them are the same. So essentially, if you are wanting to close them, now I have to see, I haven't tried to close it yet. I think the idea is that, yeah, you would essentially do it like a wet bag. So you would fold it over on itself like that, and then you would pull these two together like so, and then you can hook it, and it should keep the contents nice and dry, and you can then wrap it down as far down as you'd like, and then you're also able to quite neatly fold it over like so that it gets a bit of structure at the very top, so it's more like a bucket style, and then there's like loads of pockets in here for lots of things, and then it has quite a square bottom, and so with content in it, it should basically be able to stand on its own if you desire, and I think that's perfect. I haven't yet put a project in it because I am going to wait. I actually just accepted another test knit for my favourite things knitwear, and I'm waiting for my yarn to come. So I've had yarn sponsored from Knitting for Olive again, which is lovely. So I'm waiting for that, and that might go in this. Or I'm also doing a test knit for, well, I'm not doing a test knit. I don't know if I'm doing a test knit. I will be knitting, whether or not I'm testing it, the Kerr sweater from Rebecca. I tried it on at a festival and I just love the fit of it. The Kerr sweater is this like colour work sort of across the boob and arm. It's beautiful. Anyway, one of those projects I reckon will go in this. We are going down to London in October, and for that weekend I reckon we'll have quite a lot of train time, so I think it'll be perfect for that. So that was what I bought at the Perth Yarn Festival. Rebecca and I also went out for dinner, a place called the Bothy, which was really lovely. Ben's parents actually live in Perth. Ben is from Perth, and so he spent the day with his parents and had Fela. Rebecca got to wave at Fela in the car. She was quite sleepy because she'd been a menace all day, hadn't you? You were a menace all day. You played with Ben's parents' dog, didn't you? You played with Luna and you were a little menace. Actually, she was fine, but it's always a lot having two dogs. Ben's parents' dog, Luna, is a Jack Russell, and she's a year older. Probably about 6 months older than Fela. And so it is mayhem when they're together. So that's the Perth Yarn Festival, and that was sort of one of the main things I wanted to update you on. Now I'm quickly going to move on to my final finished object, and I'm going to put in a try on from Fela. Should I let you outside before I do that? The little menace has been sent outside. So I made Fela try it on because I often get asked, are you ever going to knit anything for Fela? And it actually turns out this could be exactly what I should knit for Fela. This is a pattern that I found during my search for what to use with any leftover bits in my stash for the Oddball Along. So this is for the Oddball Along, which I'm hoping to pick up more maybe towards the tail end of the year, or it will just be something that I continuously post to as and when I make small projects and I'll talk about on the podcast. There isn't that many photos just yet on the Oddball Along hashtag, but if you do knit small projects that use, 1 or 2 skeins, maybe even 3, this type of things that if you have leftover things for projects that you don't know what to do with, that's exactly what the Oddball Along is for. It's a hashtag that I came up with together with Naomi, and the name was suggested by Summer Knits actually, who also has a podcast. So yeah, it's been a while since I've done anything for it, but here is one. So I stumbled across this on Ravelry when I was looking, because they have this function on the sort of desktop version of Ravelry where you can put in how much you have of a certain yarn, and then it will show you suggestions as to what other people have knit that had the same kind of amount. And it's so useful for those up balls when you just like, you know, you have like 150 grams or 100 grams and you want to see what could it become. So one of the patterns it suggested for my leftover Peruvian Highland wool was the bandana cowl by Pearl Soho. Another benefit is that I did not realise this, but most of the Pearl Soho patterns are free, and if you are looking for smaller patterns, they have so many. So if you do have any favourite Pearl Soho patterns, do let me know in the comments so I can check them out, because will probably knit more. But anyway, people often ask me if I'm going to knit something for Fela, and I actually think I can knit Fela a baby version of this, because this one does fit her. So it's essentially a cowl in the sense that it's connected in the back, but like a bandana, it has that triangle in the front. As it's a free pattern, I am just going to explain the basics, which is you cast on basically up here. Yeah, you cast up here, and then, or is it down there? It's down here. Yeah, that's right. So you cast on at the back, and then you use short rows knitting backwards and forwards to create the sort of triangular part, and then you work in around while doing a few decreases until you reach the very top, and then you finish with a garter ridge. You start with garter ridge and you finish one. So it's a very simple pattern. I used exactly 55 grams of Filcolana Peruvian Highland wool, and I plan to wear this together with my school run headband, which is in the same yarn, for dog walks, etc. I actually wore this for hoopers today. It has the perfect fit for, like, you know, when you just want to keep your neck warmer and sort of protect it a little bit against elements. But as you can tell, on 6mm needles, I did not gauge swatch either. It is not a tight gauge at all. It is quite airy and loose, and I actually really wanted that because I don't want this to be like a dense fabric. I want to wear this for dog walks and where, you know, sometimes you just want to cover your ears a little bit, etc. So it's not really a fashion statement, but it's quite practical. And knitting this took me, if you were knitting this as a gift, you could do it in a few hours. So it's a perfect kind of like stash buster for a lot of sort of DK-ish weight yarns, and or a very, very quick and relatively cheap, because you need very little yarn, Christmas presents. And yeah, it would be fairly easy to even change things like what the sort of borders of it, you know, what colours they are. You could easily put in other yarns. You can make it shorter, you can make it longer, you could do lots of things. And if you want to knit it for your dog, for Fela's neck, this is a little bit wide, but she looked very cute. So yeah, I'll probably show you the video where I forced her to pose with it on already. But yeah, very quick and easy knit. And that leaves me to some acquisitions. So obviously I am still trying to knit up a few socks, and actually what I considered using the grey yarn for together with this was for a pair of colourwork socks. I just decided that I would rather have a pair of actual grey socks than use it for colourwork, but I think they could have been very nice. However, fortunately, I got sent a little present from Simona from Knit. So she just started carrying Cardiff cashmere, which is so incredibly soft. And she said, I'm willing to send you some, tell me how much you need for a project. Now, I could probably have been cheeky and said, oh, I want like 20 balls, but I know this is quite pricey, and I do like Simona, and I do not like to be cheeky. So I asked for 2, and I think this is going to be a Lilu shawl by Sarah Nordland, which is this little lacy scarf. And I picked this grey bluish colour. It's slightly more blue in real life than I expected. However, I still think it'll be fine. Originally, I'd picked like a creamish colour. However, Simona rightly pointed out that if you're knitting a shawl, it might sit just, you know, where the foundation line is, and you could get foundation on it. So that's this. This is in the colour Dust or Dusk. I think it's Dust. So yes, I have 2 balls of this, which I'm hoping to knit up soon so that it doesn't go to waste. I'm actually thinking, because it's an all over lace shawl, it might make sense for me to take it when we go to London, because when we take the train back down, it might be quite a good like involved project if, you know, you're kind of bored on the train. And then I just need to think of something maybe slightly more mindless, and the mindless knit might be with it, she also sent these 2 balls. This is Sadness Gone Perfect, which is a superwash wool nylon blend of some description. 80% wool, 20% nylon. It's produced in Norway, and it's 100 meters per 50 grams. It's a classic DK weight sock yarn, essentially, with actual nylon in it and superwash. It's very, very nice feeling. I think this is considerably softer and nicer than the Midwinter Yarns. So I'm kind of thinking, I found this pattern when I was looking at DK weight socks on Ravelry, which is how I found this pattern. And I found one called Brunost, which is Brunost is a Norwegian cheese. And there's this pattern that has that kind of traditional Norwegian style that you often see. I think it probably from the Majorsgenser, and sort of like that kind of traditional Norwegian kofte style. And basically that motif is on a pair of socks. It's a free pattern that I will link, and I think this combo could be really sweet. Now, because Perfect only runs 100 meters, I was actually thinking, and I think I have more of the Peruvian Highland wool than I need for the color work. I might do the upper ribbing in this color as well, and they would kind of just use both of these off, use both of these up, and should make really comfy socks. And once you're kind of over the color work, it's just a classic sock and should be fairly straightforward. So that's something left on my needles. And besides that, I have just put the rest of my DK weight sock yarn. Besides, I have some Venla as well, which is a Midwinter yarn. This is Masham BFL from Sakami that I bought a few months ago. Yeah, it's DK weight. Which is another yarn I'd quite like to use up. So I'm thinking I'll be knitting up quite a lot of DK weight socks this year, just because they move a lot faster. And that is all. The dog has now bashed the window twice in the hope I will let her in. So I will do that in a minute. I probably need some food, some actual food. I have had melon for breakfast, and then I had a blueberry muffin from Costa for lunch. So I need some actual food that I need to cook like a true adult. But yeah, I hope you've liked a slightly different format, but I feel like especially this last bit, just the sort of acquisitions part, I feel like can sometimes feel a bit unnatural if you've started working with them. So I hope you don't mind I've switched it up, and I hope you will enjoy any future videos I might have time to film if you watch them. So yeah, I just want to thank you all as usual for coming along and for watching and for commenting and all of these things. It means the world to me that people are actually wasting their time watching this. So thank you so much, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to. As usual, all the links are down below, and I will see you next time. Bye!